Hmm. Hey
We're
y'all, hey
live.
y'all, hey y'all. It is official. We are live. So go ahead, tag your friends, get them in the room, let folks know that we are here and that we are going to be sharing all sorts of stories and being in conversation with you all for a little bit. So I want to officially welcome you all to Byrd Talk. This is actually season 3 of Bird Talk. When I actually took a look at all of the things, I started Bird Talk back in 2020. I wanted to find a way to still have conversations with people and to I don't know, stay connected with the world. And so one of the ways that I wanted to be able to stay connected um, with the world is by being able to go live with people and have conversations with them in really, really, really beautiful ways. So, the first iteration, I will be sharing some snippets from then. Had some really great conversations with some really great artists. Hey, Kristen, it's good to see you on IG. I see that you are here. Let us know where you're from in the chat and what you are looking forward to. This is the first segment of Bird Talk. The first one we did was in 2020. The second one we did was last year, doing this one of my favorite things to do, y'all. During the release of Igniting Ink, Bird Talks Igniting Ink Live took place. Catherine was a part of that conversation. You all will get a chance to learn more about Catherine here and what we're doing. And now we're officially in season 3 of Bird Talk Conversations and Remembering. And so we're doing things a little bit different with this iteration of Bird Talk, right? What I wanted to be able to do was to create a space where conversation has the opportunity to happen between me and the sister resistors, right? I ask folks all the time as we're going through this writing journey. If I'm asking folks to show up, I need to be able to make the first move. And so, what does that actually look like? I've been told that my vulnerability is my superpower and my light. And so, I am leaning into this, not having all of the answers of what this looks like. But what I do know is for season 3, the thing that I want to be able to do is to be able to create a liberating podcast where women of color have the opportunity to reclaim our voice, our bodies, and our brilliance one conversation at a time. So thank y'all so much for joining us. I'm going to give, I call her my sage. Um, because there is just so much that you give to the world and every time we are in conversation with one another, I'm just so grateful to have you in space and to be a part of our fellow ambassadors. I don't know if y'all saw that post that I did it was like a month ago, where I made the official announcement of all of our fellow ambassadors. Catherine is one of the reasons why I am still here, y'all. Why I am still going. Her love, her light, her advice on a regular basis, her just you all will see what I am talking about. But before we kind of kick things off, Catherine, I would love for you to introduce yourself to all the people who are watching. Let them know who you are, where your feet are planted, your pronouns if you choose, and we joke a lot about this in our community. We have been rocking and rolling for about 3 years now, which is crazy to think about time and what time has looked like. I would love for you to talk a little bit about how we met. We've been joking for the longest time that we need to write a book just on the stories of how folks met me. And you are always one of the ones that are kicking that off. So let folks know who you are, pronouns if you choose, where your feet are planted, and how we met.
All right. Well, aloha kako, everyone. I'm Catherine. I grew up and was raised on the island of Hawaii. Yes, that's the right way to pronounce it. The W is pronounced as a V. There's 12 letters in the Hawaiian alphabet, and we pronounce every single letter. But I grew up with three great grand on the shoulders. I stand on the shoulders of my three taitais, my three great grandmothers. The oldest passed away at 102, and so their legacy, their light, lives on in me, and it lives in me in a way that my work is centered on how do we raise up voices, particularly voices that often get silenced, minoritized, or dissuaded. And so my work has been in education, but it's also been in community. That so much of who I am comes from my Hawaiian roots, even though currently my feet are planted in Massachusetts. My pronouns are Wahine and the she series. How I met Heather. Hi, Joan. I met Heather through a conference that actually we both have been going to for years, and we probably did run into each other. The conference is now and it's over 20 years. So we probably have
Mhm.
passed each other in hallways or hotels, but we didn't know each other. And when the pandemic happened and this conference moved online, that I signed up. I was craving for community. Here we were isolated in our houses and our apartments. And I attended a keynote that Heather was leading, and she was talking about her desire to help 1,000 women of color publish their books. And I had been thinking for years about writing a memoir. My students, for years, have been encouraging me to write um, around the stories that I would often tell in my teaching. That I often say that I was vulnerable with students without necessarily giving up my authority. And I really needed to take that sort of leap of faith, but I also knew that I couldn't do it alone. And so here I am in this keynote, and Byrd is spouting these words of wisdom and encouragement. And you know how when you're looking at a webinar and they can't see you, but you can see them, and there's a comment section. But rarely do the keynoters ever comment in the comment section because they're focused on talking to the folks on screen. So I just felt inspired in that moment to write something around that I was really interested in starting to write. And this was a very inspiring keynote. Well, lo and behold, a second later, Heather responds to me. And I'm like, whoa, a keynote responded to me. And she said, you have a story to write. And I'm like, well, yeah, I do. And so a couple weeks later, she offered this sort of, 3 steps and webinar, and I signed up. I was like, okay, I'm curious to what more this woman has to say. And to my fortune, only 5 of us were in this Zoom room with her. And when you sort of click with someone, I was just like, okay, I really probably do need a writing coach because I need the help to be accountable. So then, we started our journey together. And when a sort of informational conversation turns into a multi-hour conversation as if you've known each other a really long time, because the more we talked, the more we actually found people we knew,
Mhm.
including that she was an artist of residence at the same college that my niece was at the same time my niece was there. And so again, fortuitously, this is how this community comes together.
Mm.
So, Heather is a teacher at heart as well. So I was learning all of these ways of writing, given that I'm an academic writer, I'm a researcher, I'm a scholar. And to write a memoir is an incredibly different kind of writing. And she pushed and she, gave assignments. And you know how when someone gives you an assignment and you say yes, because you don't want to lie, but you also don't want to disappoint them, but you know that you haven't done it like as often as they expected you to. So we had talked about, I needed sort of a regular time to write because as most of us do, or at least in I statements, that I would put other things first. I'd clean the house, I'd start some work, I'd talk to friends. And then by the time I got ready to write, the day was ending. So
Mm.
she's like, oh, you're more, when do you write best? I said, I write best in the morning. She goes, all right, well, why don't you get up, get a glass of water, sit on your couch, and before you even have breakfast, start to write for 30 minutes. I'm like, sure. So when she asked me if I did it, I had only done it once, but I wasn't lying. I did do it. Lo and behold, what we realized is she was asking the same question to Regina. She was asking the same question to Teresa, and we were all giving her the same kind of yes, but it wasn't a consistent yes. So we now joke around that we do a yes, Heather. So she decided to call our bluff. She's like, y'all know I'm not a morning person, and we all nodded. And she said, but we're going to do this experiment for 2 months where you're all going to get up at 7:30 in the morning, wherever you are in the country, and you're going to write for 30 minutes in community on a Zoom screen. And I'm willing to do that for you all because I know that you're not doing this on a routine basis. And we all kind of calm us down. Like really, she caught us. So what started out almost 3 years ago as a 2 month experiment. We started January 5th, and we were going to go basically for till the end of February. It has lasted, and has lasted because of Heather being the catalyst. It has lasted because that we have one person talks to one person, talks to one person, talks to one person. And it moved from a 30-minute writing session to then a community conversation. And those community conversations have gone on from till like 9, 10 o'clock. Folks
Yeah.
have missed PT appointments, medical appointments, gone late to work. Don't tell anybody. But it has formed this sort of community where, those doubters of like, can you create a close, trusting, non-judgmental, giving community online? And the answer is a resounding yes. That we did not meet each other until almost a year and a half in, where some of us then went to Chicago for me, it was my first writing retreat ever, having been a writer my whole life, to actually be in community with women that I'd been online with every day, Monday through Friday, to then go on retreat, to go to literally a house in the middle of nowhere and to write for 3 days, was the best gift I've given myself in such a long time.
Mm.
And so why I continue to stay in this community is because of that, is because, as a group of women of color, we've done work on ourselves, that we didn't come into this community green. We didn't come in this community feeling like we were going to operate in a hierarchy. We didn't come into this community, expecting Heather to be the, leader and to do the work ahead of us. That we basically, it truly is a lean on and lean in community, that we have been there to jump for joy when someone gets published. And we've also
Just
been
did
there to
that. I
hold
just wanna,
them
you just did
when,
that. Lean in and lean on
oh,
community.
I did. I just said that.
You just said that.
Well, we've also been there when the hard times have come and the trauma has come or the grief has come. And you can hold somebody and hug them from afar. And we've done that for each other.
Hold on.
And I got to write what I just said.
I'm trying to type this in the chat. We've created a lean in and lean on
I'm getting my
community. If
journal.
there are things that you all are hearing, make sure y'all are writing this in the chat too, so that we can go back and capture these, because that is a nugget that I want to make sure that I capture. I was like, hold on, I got to pause real quick. We've created a lean in and lean on community. And that's not wrong. And the more that we talk about this community, the more that we begin to have language. Because for the first year of us experiencing this, again, because it was a 2 month experiment, the first year we were trying to put words to what we were experiencing, because
Right.
people would come in and they would be like, wait, what is this again? How this exists, right? And so when trying to tell others about what we're doing, it was kind of hard. It was just one of the things of like, come in and experience it, and then we'll begin to build this collective language, because we're still trying to explain what this is. And so every time we talk about it, I feel like we're pulling a one liner here and there that we'll be able to build, to do our best to explain what this community is and what this community has done for us. And it still won't be enough words
Right.
to describe the transformations that we've all gone through. So thank you so much for sharing all of that. It makes me giggle every single time I hear it, because there are parts of it that I've forgotten, um, that have happened, and then there are parts that I'm like, every time it just makes me giggle. And the yes Heather thing, it's a collective thing. It just happens, right? And we've all
Right.
done it before, where someone has told us to do something, we've yes them. And it may or may not have happened. It's just that now collectively we all have the shared experience around it. And so, yes, Joan, there's never enough words to capture the
Exactly.
transformational experiences we have. Yeah, that's it. And for those of you who are watching, if you ever see me giggle, Catherine has a knack for, I don't I don't know where it comes from, but it comes from somewhere. And she lays it down. And it lands so beautifully. And I don't even think she realizes that she says some of the things that she says, and then she'll go, "Oh, I just said that." It's one of my favorite things. So if y'all catch me going, "Oh, I just said that," shout out to Catherine.
Thanks.
That is where that came from. So thank you so much for sharing that. Again, if you all are here, let us know in the chat who you are, where you're coming from, and why you decided to join us today. Like, this conversation is a act of me saying yes to something that has not fully fleshed out yet. And when I start thinking about the process of writing, that's part of the writing process, is leaning in, leaping, saying yes before you're even ready and know what you're going to write. And so this is, it's a little nerve wracking for me. I'm not going to lie, but we're doing this thing, and I wanted to do something a little bit different. So we had a chance to learn Catherine and who she is. Now Catherine has the opportunity to ask me some questions live about whatever is on her heart. It could be about craft, it could be about the lessons that I've learned, it could be about some of the challenges that I have gone through, because I'm very transparent about where I am in my journey. I think part of the issues that people have when they're writing, they see people's finished product. And when we
Yes.
see the finished product, we have a tendency to compare to their end, when we're just getting started, and that's unfair, right? And so
Yep.
I try to be as transparent as possible about where I am in all of the things, because here we believe in healing first, writing comes second, and movement building is third. So if you are not going through your healing journey, being able to show up on the page, it's going to be a lot more difficult. So I am excited for this conversation. Again, it is a conversation. So if y'all are in the chat, feel free to lean in. If you all have responses to any of the questions or questions of your own, we might have a chance to take a couple. So, Catherine, I'm going to turn it over to you. And I can't wait to hear your first question.
So I first just want to thank you for taking, this opportunity and saying yes. And, part of this work and part of writing is often not knowing what the end goal is, but letting it be an organic sort of fluid creation. And in fact, that's what this group is, right? I think that's why, hi, Cassie. I think that's why it is hard to put into words, and yet at the same time, we need to put into words. And I
Mhm.
so much of what we've learned as a community is that we can live within the contradictions, but that we can also be unapologetic. We can show up unapologetically who we are, and particularly coming into a space where we have experience being spirit murdered, we have experience being race lit and gaslit, and to be able to come into a space where we can not, those experiences don't need to define us, that our
Mhm.
stealthiness, our strength is what defines us. And so actually leading this actually leads into the first question that I have for you, which is, and I'll put it up so the audience can see it too, is your work has earned significant recognition. You are an award-winning poet, author, writer. Can you share a moment when your poetry surprised you with its power to connect, ignite, or heal either in your own life? Oh, it cut me off. Either in your own life or through a reader's response.
Hmm. I'm going to answer this question in two parts. Um, Speaking of being transparent, right? And being in the space, I am still, so the first part, to answer that question, hearing you just ask that question sits differently with me, because I am actively working through owning those identifiers of
Mm,
being award winning, being named a living legacy. All of those things, when I hear them, I go, "Oh wow, who you? Me? You talking to me? Like who?" And I don't move through the world with them like hovering over me, or sketched on me, stitched in me. I usually forget, and sometimes in this way, forgetting who I am and what I've done can be a challenge, because then the impostoring sits in and I forget who I am, right? And in the group we talk about, shout out to Lovia Jai Jones in Professional Troublemaker. In the first chapter, she talks about reconnecting and developing our own orikis. And the chapter is
Mm-hmm.
called Whose We Are, I believe. Um, and I forget whose I am. Like I forget. And so even just hearing you ask that question, I go through a moment of, oh, that's right. And I have to sit up a little straighter, or raise my head a little bit higher, hear those words, allow them to sink in, and then be able to even answer the question, right? So that's the first part of it. I know that wasn't necessarily a part of the question, but it's a part of my process. When I hear, like, when people talk to me, I have a typewriter going on in my head, like, and so I repeat what people say, then have the opportunity to understand it and then find the answers. Um, so to answer the question around a specific a moment when my poetry surprised me, it wasn't a particular poem. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
what the poems have done for me that has surprised me. I have had the opportunity to be in rooms and share spaces with Dr. Joy DeGruy for the White Privilege Conference, right? I've
Right.
had the opportunity to be on panels and do interviews and lead sessions on in conferences. And I've had the opportunity to take in all of that entire, like, I got chills just saying that, like the entire room and what that does for people in the moment. So there isn't necessarily one poem that is necessarily stands out for me. What I will say is I think it's my collection of work and what my work has done, and the recognition this past November by Brooks Permissions to be named a living legacy. I think that
Mm-hmm.
is the moment that surprised me, because when I got the email, I thought it was spam. I was like, who is this? Like, what do you, what? And then someone sent me a text message in the group chat, and it was like, "Did you see the news, Heather?" And I'm like, "Wait, what? This is real? Like,
Yeah.
what?" And so I had to, like, actually read, because I was afraid to open the email, because the email
Right.
said, "You are a living legacy," and I'm like,
Yeah.
"What?" And then I finally opened up the email and read it, and to be seen in that way and to be recognized for the work that I'm not only doing on the page, but also in community and within
Yeah.
this movement, that is a moment that surprised me, because you never know who is watching. I know you all are watching, because we see each other at least 2-3 times a week. We're texting probably once a day. Like, we're in community with
Yep.
one another. And one of the reasons why I love you all so very, very much is because in this space, we've been able to create an atmosphere that does not let us forget who we are. So you all don't let me forget who I am. So I know you see me. Sometimes when I don't even see myself, but to have others see me, that's what sat with me in a way that I was not anticipating. And to be on this list with so many beautiful, amazing names, like the late Nikki Giovanni and Mahogany L.
Yeah.
Brown and Jessica Caremore, who's the Detroit Poet Laureate, and Amanda Gorman and Tara Betts and Jamila Woods, and, like, half of those people I actually know and have met
Right.
and have
Right.
conversations with and have shared space with. And so to be among those names, that was a surprise to me in a way that felt, I don't know if I have a word for it. I'm still trying to find the word for it. I felt seen, for sure, in that moment.
Yeah.
I felt seen in that moment.
I think, my sense is that you felt seen, you felt believed, you felt uplifted, and all, as Cassie said, that, you are a living legacy, and that this, recognition allowed that to be even further um, uplifted.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, Cassie. I see she also put in the chat, it's a part of my gift, the way you make others feel seen and understood.
Yes.
And that is something that I am constantly unpacking and understanding. Because when I sit down and think about the spaces that I've created since I've been able to create space, like my home was a place where people always came through. I remember creating open mics in high school. I remember creating the slam team that still exists, and people said wouldn't happen 20 years ago when I started it. They are still going. When I look at the evidence, I was on a call today, and I actually asked one of my business coaches how to help me get out of my overthinking mode because I'm in it. I am in it, y'all. And she was like, "How long have you been writing?" And I said, "Oof, over 20 years." And then I started doing the math more, and I was like, "Over 30 years." And she goes, "Okay, yep, mm-hmm." "And how long have you been teaching others to do that?" And I started doing math, and I was like, "Over 25 years." And she goes, "Okay, yep, mm-hmm, yep. So what you're telling yourself isn't real?" And I said, "Uh-huh, yep, mm-hmm, right." So
Yeah.
it's a constant reminder, and understanding what has been built, and I'm still reminding myself of that.
And what I think is so powerful is one is your vulnerability to admit that, because I think that so much of what we also talk about is the ways that we've been conditioned to think, to read, to write, the room and the
Mm,
spaces that we're in. And as Joan said, right, like you are a magic creator of transformational spaces.
mm,
And that in and of itself is it's decolonized dreaming. It's being able to say that, we colonization is the water that we swim in. And so, of course, there is going to be that self doubt. Of course, there is going to be that sort of sense of urgency around time. But I think that what we've learned with you is that we have the capacity to counter that and to counter it in such a way that we renormalize and we
mm-hmm,
reimagine our own spaces. And
mm,
so, for the community conversations, if someone has to go, someone just moves host, right? Like we have figured out a way where just because one person has to get off doesn't mean everybody has to get off, which you would normally do on Zoom or you would normally do in a meeting. If one person's got to go, everybody got to go. And what we do is we actually said, no, we get to define this space because it's ours. And I think what you have done so brilliantly is that you have created a collective so that there is shared ownership in a way that it wasn't like a hierarchical decision. It
mm-mm.
was something that organically got created. And so, for Joan to step in or Cassie to, there becomes that step in movement that is sort of like if we were in person, it's like this sort of interpretive dance that happens literally every day.
Yeah,
And I
it
think
really
that's,
is, and it's
I
different
can't believe I
every
just said
single
that.
day.
Yeah,
You did.
I just said that.
Somebody type in
And
the chat. It's an interpretive dance. Like I need that for later.
it is. And because that becomes the healing component of of what you're the catalyst, right? Like, yes, we're all here, but
Hmm.
you know because every time we would say that, you would kind of look down, or you look around. But that you're the catalyst because everyone's connection starts with you.
Mm,
um and it grows out, right? And but again, that becomes that sort of um that's the preciousness of this. And so
mm.
when I think of my next, you ready for the next one?
Yeah, we can do
So
it.
the next question, I'm going to put it in two parts because it looks like StreamYard cuts me off. So the next question is that, emerging future authors watching might be wondering about your craft, right? Because again, you write poetry, you write spoken word, you coach us. Is there a particular writing ritual or exercise or insight that you've discovered that constantly assists you to assess your most authentic voice, particularly at a time now where that voice um, is it being pushed aside? When we think about the book bans, when we think about, the fact that if we were to look at our bookshelves, most of us have books that are now not valued in the way that they used to be. And so
Mhm.
what sort of what do you hold on to?
Mm, my goodness, so much. The first thing that came to my mind was, well, two things came to mind. One was the act of journaling. That practice is a practice that I have wholeheartedly like dived into, and allowing myself to be messy on the page. I also, for those of you all, if I turn my computer, I don't know what will happen. So I'm not going to do that right now. However, one day I'm gonna take a picture so that y'all can see it. I have a gigantic whiteboard on my wall. So I believe in not only journaling, so maybe it's three parts. So not only journaling first. I'm not gonna say what comes first. It's whatever
No,
one I need in the moment. So
exactly.
journaling is one of them. Brainstorming is another. Like I will readily pick up a dry eraser marker. I have
It's
windows now
awesome.
that I have written
Yep.
on. Like there
Yep.
the windows right now. One of the things that's on my window is I don't chase. I attract the people who are ready for this kind of truth telling, right? So that's something that came to me and I had to write it down. But I have a gigantic whiteboard. And so brainstorming is a part of my process, because if you can't organize what's in your mind to even begin to work through it, then you're just going to be in this loop of, well, what do I do? Well, what do I do? Well, what do I do? Well,
Exactly.
you have to figure
Yep.
out how to get out of your head, right? And so one of my superpowers is actually helping people get out of their head and onto the page. I literally just sit and let you talk, and you will see me drawing arrows and doing all sorts of things. And if you ever saw my notes, you probably think I'm a little off. It is perfectly fine. It is my superpower, right? Like,
Right.
but it'll all make sense. And so I do the same thing for myself. I journal around how or what is going on. And you all have probably heard me say this. It takes me at least 3.5 pages of writing
Yep.
before I get down to the root of what needs to be written, going to the whiteboard or whatever I have accessible at the time. And brainstorming is a big part of my process. And then what most people might not know, unless you've actually shared space with me, is you will probably see me shuffling cards. Um, I do this in my workshops for several different reasons. It's mostly for my own work, but I work with tarot. And so I do this to tap into my own subconscious to figure out what I need to know in this moment that I may or may not be running away from. Right. So you'll see me in a meeting or on a call, and I'll just shuffle to stay focused. I will shuffle because I'm asking a question or not. But when I tell you these cards will fly out and tell me what I need to know, whether I know it or not, I might put it aside. And when I start cussing y'all, that's when I really know the card is for me because it's like challenging me in a way that I may or may not have been ready for. So
Right.
those are the three things that I can always go back to that help me. And when I'm stuck, I tap into those. So I'll journal around it, and sometimes my hand will get mad at me, and I'm like, fine, not journaling. I'll brainstorm because I don't need complete sentences at this moment. So I'll go to my gigantic whiteboard. If I am just swirling and nothing is coming to me, then I pull out the cards, and the cards really help me to again tap into my subconscious and use the images that are reflected back to me to answer the question to help me get through whatever it is I'm challenged by or with.
I resonate with that so much in terms of just even your work with me, is that, again, the art of writing a book is so many steps, but it's also not steps, right? It's a process. And I
Mhm.
think that when we first started, I have so much that that's in my heart, that's in my head around what I wanted to write about. And I couldn't for the life of me figure out how to start. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember and I remember we were having these coaching sessions and we were talking, and I'm like, oh my God, when we're going to start writing? And then, um,
That a
and
lot.
again, what I also love about your style is you don't always tell me or us like what you're up to, because I think that you don't want to lead with that. Like you actually just want us to embrace the process.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just kept talking, and I was just like, okay, we keep talking, but we got to write. And at one point, you then said, Catherine, you've already written this book. And I was like, Heather, where are you going with this? And you said it again, and I looked at you like through the screen, like, okay. And you said, because you're an oral storyteller. And I remember I cried because you said you come from an oral tradition. That when you talk about your great grandmothers, when you talk about your Hawaiian aunties and uncles, um, that is an oral storytelling tradition. That you have been orally telling these stories and you're teaching for 40 plus years.
Yeah.
And so what we need to do now is a memoir does not need to be 800 pages. People are not reading long books. And you came up with the idea of a memoir series. And you said, all right, then let's identify sort of 3 stories that you routinely have told in your teaching, and let's look for the connection between them. And you then said, I'm going to record you. And that this was coming off the heels of me doing some work with Peggy McIntosh, where she had been interviewing me as well. But
Mm-hmm.
then you actually put it into a process where you said, all right. And again, I made some assumptions at that point. You're like, okay, Otter is going to record you, and then you're going to go back and look at it. And in my head, I'm like, oh, great. She said I already wrote the book. So I'm just going to talk in Otter, and then I'm going to just, take out the uhs and the those and give it to Heather. And then what I realized is that, we did great work in Otter, but then when I went back to it, I ended up writing even more because more memories came back because I was rereading those conversations. And I think what was brilliant about that is that you didn't tell me that was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
That you just said, I want you to talk your story. And again, right, in Hawaii, we say talk story. So you were leaning into what my culture defines in terms of what a book is, right? Like a book doesn't need to be just this tangible thing that we have in our hand or this tangible thing that we get on our phone. And so I think for you to help decolonize and broaden my definition of that. But then when I went back to the recording and started to write, what I realized is then after a while, I stopped looking at the recording and I started actually writing the book.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that those rituals of journaling, of leaning into the ways that our culture and our family have been telling stories, those are your superpowers, and the fact that they work for you, but then you're able to, without it being an imposition, you're able to work that into your coaching and mentoring in a way that leads us to a place of self-discovery.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things that I really want to honor when it comes to your journey is you sticking with it, because it took you a year to unlearn all the things that you were taught were supposed to happen when it came to writing, right? And so we had
Right.
to take a look at what academia had told you was the proper way of writing, right? Which stripped you of your language, right? And the way that you normally wrote, and the stories that you would tell, and all of those pieces, right? And getting you into the habit of writing, like all of that, that mindset piece that not enough people talk about, took a
Mhm.
year. And to
Yeah,
honor that and to stick with it and to keep coming back deserves to be celebrated. Like y'all know
thank
me, I
you.
believe in happy dances for all the little things, right? The little and the big things. To the fact that you kept showing up and trusting the process, and which is what this is. This is a process, this is a
That's it.
journey. This is not a one quick fix, 30 days, here we go, boom, turn around. Because if you would have written that book in the first 30 days of us meeting, it wouldn't have been the book that's going to transform the lives the way that I know that it is. I have seen you tell stories. And every time you tell it, even though I know what's coming next, I am still sitting there like, it's that's what needs to be on the page, right? So I really celebrate you for showing up every single day that you are here,
Mhm.
whether you are reading, whether you are writing, whether you are breathing life into someone else, breathing life into the page, working with your students. All of that is a part of the process of your writing journey. And whew, I can't wait to see what's next. Like
Well, and I appreciate you saying that, Heather, because, so much of our life is timed and is
Mhm.
defined by time. And so, my thought was that the book has to be timed and I have to get it out because I'm writing it. But, I started to go home to Hawaii more. And
Mhm.
it was because of the book that I came up with different questions that I wanted to ask my elders. And I was able to sit with them and talk story over Hawaiian food, right? But I was able to ask questions that I didn't know that I should have asked when I was younger.
Mhm.
And had the book been written earlier, I would not have made these trips home and asked these questions. And and the answers that I got and the hush stories that came out of those conversations, which I'm going to
Great.
save because they're for the book, but the hush stories that got released would not have would not be in the book or would not have shaped the book if the book had been written within 6 months to a year.
Yeah.
And you're right, it was hard because again, we walk in this world that's time that 3 months or 4 months, like how come I wasn't into chapter 2 already, right? And I think that you helped and this group helped me to sort of breathe and to realize that I'm breathing life into something that's organic, that is not going to get written on a time clock, but is going to get written with time. And
Mhm.
there you go. There's
Yep.
a difference, right? Being on a clock
You just did that.
or working with time.
Yeah.
Um, and so, which actually then leads me to my last question. Is that again, poetry and spoken word have this very unique ability to capture a snapshot of life as it is. If you were to name this moment in time or your current creative chapter in 3 lines, what would you write?
See, it's the constraint for me. The 3 lines.
You get that she's doing her Heather look.
I'm looking up. I'm doing the thing. In 3 lines, I think the chapter title or like the theme would be elevate.
Mm,
And within that elevation, I'm learning how to stand in my light while bringing my sister resistors along the way.
mm,
I'm sure there's more in there. It's the constraint for me. I'm like, oh no, but it revolves around the word elevate and elevation and being able to stand in my light and bringing my community with me.
mm,
Because this isn't just a me win. This is a
mm-hmm.
this is a us win. Like you said, like we've had this conversation about the way birds fly and how we each get to take turns um, in the front. And while someone's in the front, we also learn something different than the previous person that was there. And so, yes, I can elevate. However, one, my elevation did not occur by myself. So being able to honor why I'm here is important to me. And I wholeheartedly believe in order to continue to elevate,
Yes.
being able to have my sage, my North Star, my healers,
Mm,
my comedians and the quiet ones and the like just everyone
yes.
that the question queen, um to the folks that were here before I even started this, before I even started the publishing side of Bird's World. Like, what does that look like? What's the quote? If you want to go far, go alone. If you want to go quick,
And
go
quick, go
alone.
along. If you
If
want to
you
go
want to go
far,
far,
go
go
together.
together, right?
Yeah.
And so that elevation is us going together. It is not a solo act.
And that's probably the start of another piece for you.
I'm sure it is. Guess what I'm gonna be doing tonight? Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Wow. Well, look at that. 45 minutes. We did it. I absolutely loved your questions. Thank you so
Oh,
much
you're very welcome.
for leaning in to something that is still being built. And honestly, that's how our morning session started. It was something that was thrown out there, and we said, let's do it, right? I absolutely love being in conversation with you. I love learning from you. I love hearing your nuggets. And when you end up saying, "Oh, I just said that," it makes my entire day. So to close us out, I know I had an opportunity to answer three questions, and you had a chance to introduce yourself. Um, I would love for you to close us out by answering the question, what are you remembering right now?
What I'm remembering is I'm remembering how closely aligned my life continues to be um, in my own indigeneity, and that this
Mm,
community is, the sense of Ohana is community, and that's on a daily basis. I am in contact and fluidity with this community. Um, this community is also a form of aloha. That if you take apart the word aloha and you move it away from the way that it has been culturally misappropriated, that alo actually means um, being in the presence of, and ha means breath. And so the way that we breathe life into and are present to each other, that we start every morning actually by doing humming and breath work, so that we are
mhm,
grounding ourselves, not just to wake up, but we're grounding ourselves to let go of whatever else is distracting us in that space. And then, the other value that I hold very dear is what we say in Hawaii is to be pono, to do right by right. And I feel that this is a community that is really committed to how do we work with and for justice in a way that honors each one of our identities, and sort of hold each other accountable. That we are encouraging each other to write, and we are sort of celebrating those moments when our artistry takes flight, but we're
mhm.
also holding each other when we get stuck. We hold each other when we're not able to write,
Mhm.
and we let each other know that it's okay. So often we walk in worlds where the focus is not being okay. And I think that we, have been talking over the last few weeks that we show up in the mornings, and we show up and we moved it to grow into the evenings, right? Like when I think about, how morning pages started with you, Teresa, um, and Regina, and then it
It's
grew to
Aquana.
Joan. But that the idea, and yes, and Shaquana, but again, it started with less than 5 people,
Yeah.
and to grow in the way that it has, from morning pages Monday through Friday to evening pages on Mondays and Wednesdays, to your coaching classes, and any of you thinking about writing a book, you know Heather coaches all identities, right? Like the ways that she is able to see you and see the story that lives in you.
Mm.
That is your gift,
Hmm.
and it continues to inspire each and every one of us that work with you.
Hmm. Thank you. Oh, I
You're
got the
welcome.
fuzzies. Well, I thank all of you all so much for being here with us. Thank you again, Catherine, for
You're
just your
welcome.
words. Your words bring so much comfort and so much love, and they're like hugs. Whenever I need a hug, I just stop everything and listen to Catherine. So thank you again so much for being here.
You're
Y'all,
welcome.
I'm going to be doing these bird talks every other Tuesday. That is the plan, right? To be in this
Yep.
space every other Tuesday. Something might shift, but we're going to be here every other week because sometimes plans change. And we are going to be in conversation with a different sister resistor every single time we have a chance to come together. And we are going to be in the practice of remembering who we are and reclaiming our
Absolutely.
voice, our bodies, and our stories that deserve to be out in the world because we're not being silenced. We're not being erased. Every word is an act of resistance that we put on the page and have the opportunity to voice. And every episode that we have here has the opportunity to allow us to return home. So until next time, I thank y'all so much for being here. Want to make sure that y'all know that I see you. You are not alone. And I want to encourage you to keep reading, keep writing, and as always, keep flying, y'all.